Hello to you, our viewers of Equinoxe Television. Thank you so much for joining us on this edition of the news. We begin right away with our major stories. 2 alleged rapists are being questioned by security forces here in Douala. The criminals have been passing for commercial motorbike riders before carrying out their hideous activities. And also in this newscast, because of the scarcity of cooking gas or domestic gas, the local inhabitants have resorted to what is now known as biogas. What actually is biogas? Stay with us as we tell you more about that and more in this edition of the news. Welcome back, viewers. We begin this edition of the news with this press release. The Ministry of Defense hereby informs the public of an operation carried out by the Defense Forces in the locality of Jotin near Kumbu in the northwest region of the country, which was aimed at dismantling a horde of terrorists and disciples of the self-proclaimed General No Pity who were spreading terror and dissolution in that locality. The Defense Forces were able to contain the terrorists with the following outcomes recorded. About 10 terrorists were neutralized and others injured while escaping. Several hostages were set free and 15 war weapons were also seized. We will be coming back to that press release from the Ministry of Defense in our subsequent editions of the news.
He showed me a cutlass whenever I tried to resist, to make me understand he is well armed. With that, he succeeded to carry out his act. Il a posé son acte, donc il m'a violé en finissant. I was returning home when I boarded a bike rider to Peka 21. The same bike rider took another male passenger on the way. Around Peka 19, the guy sitting behind me took out a knife. They took my bag and all its belongings and raped me, which I later wrote a complaint to the police. Victims of rape demanding justice to be made. Both of them have been sexually assaulted on different occasions by men who pretend to be commercial bike riders. They carry passengers, especially female students, to wrong destinations and sexually abuse them. After raping several girls, the last suspect finally falls into the dragnet of security elements.
The first case is a minor. Her destination was Mile 21. But along the line, the suspect took her instead to Mile 19 behind the prison because it's his hideout, and raped her, took all her belongings and went away. For the second case is almost similar aspect. He did the same thing. A bike rider who took a young lady, he carried a young lady at the Mile 14, took her to Mile 19 behind the prison and raped her and took her telephones and other belongings.
The suspect has been arrested and is in the hands of police officials to answer to his acts. I don't know what came over me. All I ask is for the authorities and the family to forgive me. The forces of law and order urges the population to be vigilant and report all suspected cases. However, cases of sexual violence and rape has become so rampant in the city of Douala. The authorities are called upon to enforce security measures.
That was a report by Mala Glory on some men who were passing for commercial motorbike riders to rape victims in some towns of the country. Now we move on to this other human interest story. A man suspected to have murdered his boss and made away with a sum of 1.5 million francs CFA has been apprehended and presented to by the elements of the judicial police station. The Malian is said to have been arrested in Yaoundé as he attempted to escape. A staffman, Smart Ndikan Gabriel, tells us more.
Last September 5th, 2022, the inhabitants of Ari, a neighborhood in the Douala 3 subdivision, woke up to discover the lifeless body of a Malian national by name Samake Karim, near a dustbin, assassinated and burned slightly. Samake Karim, whose main activity was to search for irons and sell, had sold 1,500,000 francs CFA, which led to his murder by a fellow Malian employee. Just a month after he was killed, the alleged killer has been presented by the elements of the judicial police station after a thorough investigation.
Investigations have therefore been carried out, coordinated by the regional delegate of the National Security of Littoral, in the direction of finding the person responsible for the death of this victim. The main suspect, also of Malian nationality, was finally found about a month later in the city of Yaoundé in the Mokolo district, after he had transited through the city of Obala to escape prosecution.
The main reason for killing his boss was for the alleged killer to take away the 1,500,000 francs CFA that Samake Karim had sold irons on that fateful September 4th, 2022.
The crime had been committed with the aim of seizing the sum of 1,500,000 francs that the victim had received earlier in the day of selling scrap metal. The suspect, who was his employee, after witnessing this collection of money, took language with two accomplices to assault his boss in the evening.
For his crime not to be suspected, the alleged killer struggled to burn the body of his boss and kept machetes and knives around the dead body for it to be like a mob action.
At the time of leaving, his accomplices would have arrived carrying a can of fuel that they poured on the victim and buried her, in order to disgrace the crime and flee.
The alleged killer, who didn't want anyone to suspect him, actively took part in the funeral of his boss before disappearing. 90 days for the thief, 1 day for the owner.
Meanwhile, some inhabitants of Ndokoti, precisely around Belavi, have expressed dissatisfaction. Their houses might be demolished by the government soon as our reporter Lucy Essien tells us that the people complain they were not given any quick notice.
Inhabitants of Ndokoti Belavi in the Douala 3 subdivision are furious. According to them, the city council is planning to destroy their houses for the construction of a drainage system.
For like 2-3 weeks, we saw unidentified men entering our zone, the quarter. Then we started asking them, what are you guys doing here, or what is your mission here? Nobody will tell you something. But just like 2 weeks ago, they came, marked houses, and they said, we have 8 days to leave. But we've been asking that, what crime did you commit so that we leave our houses in 8 days? No one has answers to give us.
A devastating condition to the population who complain of being victims of an abusive demolition.
And schools have just begun, with school fees, with students written, they registered in schools around. We don't just know what we do with these children. We don't even know with what means we're going to be situated wherever we go.
Day Elvis, a victim, says his parents have been living in Ndokoti Belavi for more than 50 years.
We are saying that we have parents here who some are blind, some can't even walk. They have been here for over 40 years. What are they going to do as we speak now? Are they going to leave, stay in the streets? A parent that is now on retirement and was thinking that he should have a rest. Some are widows. What are those widows going to do? They are being sent on the street. And we know that things like this, when they happen, at least there's a kind of communique that they give us before they even come. So the surprise here is that we haven't given any communique.
The victims also say they have visited the city mayor on several occasions to no avail. They are calling on the authorities concerned to look into their situation.
Come for Douala here, 1966. I managed with my tango for feed my picking the boy God don't give me. So now the same I go, I'll go outside. And how I go start for that place where they go now.
And now cooking gas is said to be very scarce across the national territory in most major cities, raising some persons have resorted to other alternatives such as biogas, and they say that alternative is very comfortable to them. Our reporter Immaculate Fogwe tells us that the local inhabitants still want the problem of gas scarcity to be resolved.
Several Cameroonians are facing challenges getting a filled gas bottle in their homes. The scarcity of cooking gas has forced many of them to rely on charcoal, firewood, sawdust stove and biogas. Though not very common, many Cameroonians are getting interested in this type of gas.
You can have biogas by natural waste, like your home toilets. You could construct your septic tank in such a way that you will profit kitchen gas from it. That's called biogas, methane gas. And also those are like farmers, those are rearing animals who also use a waste for biogas before it could still come out like bioslurry that you use in your farms. We don't need to throw our garbage. We explode our garbage. We convert them into biogas.
A user of biogas says her family now depends on it to cook food every day.
Using biogas because scarcity of gas. Since I started using biogas, I'm not having any problem again with gas. So even now I'm hearing that there is no gas, but for me I'm okay. I can prepare my fufu corn, my rice, water fufu, everything.
According to biogas installation technicians, the fact that it is eco-friendly goes a long way to combat global warming.
Biogas is very good because it cannot burn your house, it doesn't smell, it has no effect on you, and everybody needs biogas because everybody has safety tanks. With biogas, you don't empty your toilet. You use your toilet for the next 100 to 200 years without emptying it because it updates itself on its own.
As the prices of cooking gas continues to rise, Cameroonians are calling on the government to solve the problem.
And now we take you to the northern regions of Cameroon. Several houses have been submerged by floods in Kuseri. Kuseri, it is a locality in the Logon and Shari division of the northern regions, and children and parents have been rendered homeless, and they are asking for the authorities concerned to come to their assistance, as Innocent Asset tells us in the report which comes up next.
Inhabitants of Madagascar 2, Gote, Madawan, Mainanani, and Kurwan, quarters in Kuseri, Logon-Shari division of the far north region, forcefully evicted from their homes by floods originating from the Logon-Shari river. The entire Kuseri town is inundated by the high water level, hindering flexible mobility. The town that has become an ocean now allows the population make use of canoes to reach safer areas. Children are stranded alongside their parents with their belongings. This flood left immeasurable damages, according to the locals. We can't evaluate material losses. We only saved our children. I've lost my 2 sheep, books of children, clothes, and many other things. According to them, if nothing is done timely enough, the worst will come. Help is all they want from government authorities. She says government authorities can register victims and assist them with sums of money. While waiting on authorities to help them, they struggle to construct huts to shelter themselves on this dry area.
And ecologists in Cameroon say the persistent floods in some parts of the country is a shame to the entire nation 1 month ahead of the COP26 Climate Change Summit in Egypt. They say the problem is persisting because of a lack of will from the government. For me, Armstrong Sanda tells us more.
Observers and ecologists like Didier Yimkwa believe that the problems with a lasting solution to the suffering of the people of the far north region of Cameroon hit by devastating floods and inundations is the lack of political will. He thinks that the diagnosis and right solution is well known to public stakeholders who have deliberately sidelined to keep the Far North region in perpetual suffering.
Est-ce que ceux qui sont à Yaoundé veulent vraiment résoudre ce problème?
The question is, what do the people of Yaoundé gain in abandoning a people like this? Do they even want to resolve the problem? Everything is contained in the national program for the adaptation of climate change. They know what has to be done.
Pour maîtriser ces contraintes-là, ces vulnérabilités-là, on sait.
Another point, according to him, is the centralization of power, which justifies the lack of proactiveness in public stakeholders. Officials whom, according to him, only show up after a natural catastrophe, brandishing items in the name of the head of state, and then abandon the people in the same misery, same day.
Est-ce le problème de la centralisation du pouvoir à Yaoundé, même dans le cadre de la décentralisation, de donner assez de moyens?
Even with decentralization, they are still unwilling to transfer financial resources to the local levels to manage this. Why can we not anticipate problems in Cameroon? Why must we wait for it to happen before we start running around?
De dire on est venu avec les couvertures, les matelas, on n'a pas besoin de ça.
With floods persisting 2 years to the end of an announced presidential emergency project to combat inundations in the Far North region, Didier Yimkwa outlines some proposals in case the government of Yaoundé decides to talk and do this time around.
Si on donne les moyens au génie militaire, il ne va pas construire ces digues-là pour orienter les eaux. Vous croyez que si on construit les maisons sur pilotis, on aura moins d'impact des eaux sur les populations? Mais c'est connu. Et en plus, dans un mois, il va se tenir la COP27 en Égypte. Et c'est pas ça fait pas bien pour l'image du Cameroun.
One of the major consequences of the sustained inundation on the local population of the region is the multiple cases of cholera outbreak reported in several health districts of the region.
And now drugs worth over 7 million francs CFA has been seized and destroyed in Monatele in the central region of the country. The drugs were seized during an operation that was carried out by security forces in collaboration with the Ministry of Public Health. Our reporter Smart Jikan has more.
Monatele, chief town of Leke Division, Central Region, has no pharmacies where its inhabitants can buy drugs whenever need be. We don't have pharmacy in our localities. Reason why everyone is said to buy drugs from these roadside vendors. As a result of the absence of these pharmacies, many who live in Monatele now prefer to buy drugs from roadside vendors who are usually carrying out their activities without authorization. It is for this reason that the forces of law and order, in collaboration with the Delegation of Public Health for Lekie, in an operation seized huge quantity of drugs worth 7,200,000 francs CFA. We got information from our sources about the availability of a good quantity of drugs at a compound. That was how we forwarded the details to the senior divisional officer, who gave us the go-ahead that enabled us to capture these drugs. During the destruction of these drugs that took place in the presence of administrative and health authorities, it was an opportunity for the senior divisional officer of the Lekie to call on the population to abstain from buying roadside drugs. We are calling on the population of Lekie not to only abstain from buying roadside drugs, but to give us vital information about areas where they are being kept. We wish to reiterate to them that even though they don't have pharmacy in their localities, they should try as much as possible to buy drugs from authorized places.
Faire l'effort qu'il faut pour aller vers les centres de santé, vers les formations sanitaires ou vers des pharmacies.
Unconfirmed reports say out of 8 roadside drug vendors who were arrested during the raid in Obala, 5 have been judged and sentenced with fines imposed on them.
And now we take you out of our national frontiers. We make a stop over first in Nigeria, talking about floods in that neighboring country. Floods in Nigeria is threatening liquefied natural gas supplies to Europe. The Nigerian Liquefied Natural Gas Company has declared force majeure. It says that it may not be able to meet contractual obligations after widespread flooding disrupted gas supplies. It could spell danger for the country's already struggling economy and likely slow down gas supply to Europe as it struggles to replace Russia exports following the war in Ukraine. Portuguese oil and gas company Gap Energia said it in a statement that it had received a notice from Nigerian Liquefied Natural Gas Company about the force majeure. And now from Nigeria, we move over to Mali, where Malian forces have said they killed 50 militants in airstrikes conducted in Tessalit area in northern Kidal region. The strikes were directed at positions held by militant groups. Colonel Ibrahim, the commander of the Gao zone, told the state media that 5 armored vehicles were burned and 35 motorcycles belonging to the terrorists destroyed. He urged residents of the area to resume normal activities. The airstrikes come a day after 2 improvised explosive devices hit a United Nations peacekeeping convoy. 4 Chadian soldiers were killed and 2 others were injured.